Hey, this is Elizabeth Potts-Weinstein, and you are watching Legal Your Truth. Today I want to talk about non-compete agreements or non-competition agreements. So if you're not familiar with them, this is a contract or a clause in a contract, sometimes goes inside of an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, stating that someone will typically not compete with you, open up their own business, or work for a competitor, usually within a certain range, in this state, within 100 miles, in this city, for 1 year, 2 years, some period of time, and usually in the same industry. Sometimes you might list competitors they can't work for, or it's just someone who does the same kind of business. Now, as you can imagine, it makes sense in some cases to have your contractors or employees or business partners sign something like this, so they don't just take all of the knowledge they got from you and their contacts, the customer list, the client list, and go start up a competitive business to you, or just go work for your arch competitor across the street. But there's a whole bunch of problems with them, some of which I'm not going to go into right now. One of them is that here in California, as a lot of people know, non-compete agreements are illegal, which is not really the right term, but that's what we like to say, so it makes sense to everyone. The issue is that actually is an oversimplification of how it works. It's not just that if you're here in California, non-competes are illegal. It's not that non-competes are illegal, and that's not the only thing that's not legal. So here's what the actual rule says. There's a statute in California that says, and I'm reading it, except as otherwise provided in this chapter, so there's some exceptions, very tiny ones. Every contract by which anyone is restricted from engaging in a lawful profession, trade, or business of any kind is, to that extent, void. So this doesn't just apply to employees. This is anyone. You can't have a contract in California that restrains, not restricts. It doesn't mean they can't have a business. It even restrains them, even somewhat, from engaging in a profession, trade, or business. This is an incredibly broad statute. And California public policy, in other words, kind of all the purpose behind the statute, is huge and very wide-reaching. It is very difficult to create an exception to this. So, what does that mean? Not only is it that you can't, if you're here in California and you're hiring an employee in California, you can't have them agree to a non-compete. Sure. If you're a business somewhere else and you hire contractors who sometimes go to California or a fair amount of the time are in California or live in California, even if you put in the agreement New York law applies or Washington state law applies, and they're here in California, you may not be able to enforce it because California courts probably won't care what your choice of law clause says in your contract. If you draft a contract, let's say you're here in California and you have an employee here in California, and you draft a contract that says it's not a non-compete. It doesn't say non-compete because you're not a complete idiot, right? It says it's a non-solicitation clause. And it says, look, I get that you can go work for our competitor, but you can't solicit any of our employees and you can't solicit any of our clients to come with you. Probably ain't going to fly either. And this is what I'm saying. This is a very broad statute. And the big issue is it because it doesn't just apply to companies in California, it applies to people who are doing business with someone in California, independent contractors, vendors, joint venture agreements you may have, someone who's a virtual employee who ends up moving to California. You may accidentally have these rules apply to you. This is a case where if you want to have a non-compete clause, a non-solicitation clause anywhere in the United States, actually, whether or not it's in California, I do recommend this is a time where hiring a lawyer is going to be helpful and worth the money, because even in other states, there's going to be other restrictions. In some states, you can only have it be for 1 year versus 2 years. In some states, there needs to be money attached to it. So you can't just hand this non-compete to your current employees. There needs to be some consideration. It needs to be a condition not just of their future employment, but of them getting a raise or them getting a bonus, or they can sign it when they originally come in, but not later. There's an art to it. And if you want this to be broad, for example, if you do business online and you want the non-compete to apply everywhere that you could possibly have it apply, then you're going to need some help. There's a lot of form agreements on the internet, even ones that purport to be valid in California, that are not going to work. Because this is one of those areas of law that changes on a daily basis. I regularly see cases come down that I'm like, oh man, I gotta redo all my non-compete agreements again because it changed things. We had found a little loophole and some little creative way to do non-solicitation clauses that they just closed. So my lesson to you is, this is one of the things that you need to learn about if you want to do non-compete agreements and or hire a lawyer, because this is one place where it's actually worth the money. Hey, this is Elizabeth Potts-Weinstein, and you just watched Legal Your Truth. For more tips for small business owners and entrepreneurs, you can go to elizabethpw.com or follow me on Twitter at ElizabethPW. Thanks a lot.